I want to share with everyone how I apply kitchen waste compost directly to my plants without needing to ferment it in a separate composting bin first. I have been using this direct kitchen waste fertilization method in my garden for many seasons now. This is a simple, quick, and efficient way to fertilize that does not negatively affect the plants. Specifically, when I fertilize my plants this way, my garden always stays clean and does not leave behind any foul odors. In the spots where I apply the waste directly, there are no flies, no ants, and the root systems are not affected at all. The plants just keep developing better and better over time. Even when I compost shrimp shells or fish heads, my garden still doesn't have a bad smell, and there are no flies. After I finish cooking, any vegetable or fruit scraps that I no longer use, including shrimp shells, eggshells, and fish heads, can all be used for composting. Fresh leaves or dry leaves in the garden, any leaves that are no longer needed, can also be taken for composting. Every morning, before I even step into the garden, I always bring along the kitchen waste I set aside from the previous day. I fertilize the plants with the kitchen waste first, and then I do my regular gardening work afterward. This morning, I am fertilizing the plants with peanut meal. Lately, I have been pressing peanut oil continuously, so I always have peanut meal available to use as fertilizer. Today, I also have vegetable peels, shrimp shells, boiled baby corn, dried coconut residue, and eggshells. Any vegetables, fruits, meat, fish, or shrimp that have been boiled without being seasoned with spices or oil can all be turned into fertilizer for the plants. This direct fertilization method is applied to planting pots, specifically large pots that contain only a few plants. For example, this pot is 2 meters long, but I only grow one gourd plant in it, positioned right in the middle. Now, I will compost the waste at the two ends of the pot. However, for a pot like this yard-long bean pot, if I were to compost here, the plants would die. Looking from one end of the pot to the other, I have planted things everywhere. There is no empty soil space left to do the composting. In places where plants are already growing, if you put waste into compost and that waste touches the root system, the plant can very easily die. For pots, where the roots haven't reached certain areas yet, I can fertilize. From the gourd vine to the spot where I just dug a hole to prepare the waste, it is about 1 meter away. When I put kitchen waste into this pot to compost it directly, the gourd vine is still small and the root system is still limited. The roots are still located around the middle of the pot and haven't crawled out to this section yet, so I can compost here. But once the gourd plant is large and the root system has reached this composting spot, you cannot do it this way anymore. You cannot compost using this method then. You can see that from the base of the gourd to the composting spot, it is a distance of about 1 meter. On days when I compost things like shrimp shells, fish heads, or animal remains, those things tend to get smelly. Therefore, in the spots where I compost those items directly, I dig a hole and bury the waste deep in the soil and cover it up, rather than spreading the waste directly on the surface of the pot. When growing plants, you should not just pile waste on top like that. For a pot with a banana tree, it might be strong enough. But for pots with cucumbers, tomatoes, gourds, or melons, if you pile it like that, the plants are very susceptible to fungal diseases in the root system. For pots that have too many leaves, you should scoop some out, leaving just a few to keep the soil moist. The rest should be buried in the ground. When you bury these leaves, they will decompose much faster compared to leaving them on the surface. Regarding the composting method, I choose a pot that is wide enough where the roots haven't reached. Then I dig a hole that is somewhat deep, down to about half the depth of the pot. And then I put the kitchen waste in. If you have products like trichoderma, EM, or EM Go, preparations that help organic matter from plants and animals decompose quickly, then take them out and use them. Today I have a packet of EM Go ready, so I will use that. If you have trichoderma or EM movie, you can use those as substitutes as well. Then I cover it with soil, making sure to cover the waste layer completely. Whenever I water the plants, I also give this spot a little bit of water. On days when I compost fish or shrimp, you should bury them a bit deeper because fish and shrimp tend to be very smelly. Usually, when I compost with fish or shrimp, I often use the applied microbial packet, the one I'm showing on the right side of the screen. When I use this packet for composting, I find that the waste decomposes faster, and even with fish and shrimp, the compost doesn't smell. The other day, I made fish fertilizer to get liquid for watering, and I also composted it using that packet. As for EM and trichoderma, I usually use them for types of waste that aren't very smelly. Specifically, for any spot where you compost fish or shrimp, you must cover the top with a very thick layer of soil. A thick layer of soil prevents the foul odor from rising up. After finishing the burial, I just leave it alone and don't worry about it. It will decompose on its own over time. When you compost directly like this, you should only do a small amount. In one spot, I only use about 2 to 3 kilograms of waste. Don't do too much. And when composting, I have a mix of kitchen waste, shrimp shells, and fish. Just a little bit of each. Don't overdo it. If I do a small amount at each of the two ends of the pot, the plant will have enough to eat. Don't do too much. In a small spot like this, if you have extra shrimp shells and you dump 5 or 7 kilograms of them in one place, that compost spot will definitely leak liquid and become very smelly. This is because the soil isn't enough to absorb all the liquid that drains out from the shrimp shells. Furthermore, if you dump 5 to 7 kilograms of shrimp shells or too much fish into this pot, the plant will suffer from root burn. Because there is too much, it will spread out. As the shrimp decomposes, it spreads. If there is too much, it will reach the root system, which is not good for the roots. Just a little bit, everyone. One hole should only have about 2 to 3 kilograms, including kitchen waste, a few shrimp shells, some egg shells, and a few fish heads. For empty pots, where I haven't planted anything yet, I also add peanut meal and mix it in. Then, every time I water the plants, I water this pot as well. When you see that the soil in the pot is no longer hot and everything has fully decomposed, then you can use that pot to plant things. You cannot plant directly right after mixing. Kitchen waste fertilizer made from peanut meal or soybean meal is very good for plants. In soybean and peanut meal, the nitrogen content is very high. If I don't plant directly in this soil later, I can use it as fertilizer for other plants, which is also very good. Among organic fertilizers, I find that peanut meal and soybean meal are the best for plants. Plants fertilized with this peanut meal grow incredibly fast. They grow rapidly and become very thick and sturdy. Let me tell you a story. When I first moved to central Vietnam in the afternoons, I would walk around the neighborhood before I started my own garden. People there grew a lot of vegetables. I saw each house growing a little bit of vegetables in front, and every single plant was so thick and lush. But the places where those people grew, their plants smelled very bad. It was the smell of fermenting fertilizer. I was curious and asked what they used to make the vegetables grow so well. The plants were thick and vibrant green. It was amazing to see. Everyone I asked said they used oil cake fertilizer. Back then, I didn't even know what oil cake was. But no matter whose house I went to, they all used oil cake. Every household used it. But later, I learned that if you compost oil cake dry, it doesn't smell. In the past, in central Vietnam, people used to ferment oil cake with water, a liquid form. Oh my goodness, it smelled so bad, just like pig manure. I'm telling you, if one house watered their garden, the whole neighborhood would smell it. Back then, you could still use oil cake that way. But nowadays, if you ferment it in a way that smells like that, the neighbors will scold you. If one house uses it, the surrounding houses can't stand it. Since we are the ones growing the plants, we might try to endure it. But the people living next door who don't garden won't accept that smell. So later on, I learned that if you compost it dry like this, it never smells. If you do it with water and don't know the proper technique, it is extremely stinky. When I first moved there and didn't know how to compost dry, I also did the liquid version. I'm telling you, if just a little bit got on your hand or a tiny bit splashed on your pants, forget about going inside. By the time I reached the stairs, the whole family could smell the stench coming off me. It was so stinky that even washing and bathing wouldn't get rid of it. It was the kind of smell that reached 3 villages and 8 communes away. It was incredibly foul. Later, many friends also fermented bins of that fertilizer, and it was so smelly it ruined the whole neighborhood. It was so bad they didn't even know where to dump it. Many people messaged me asking, "Sister, I fermented oil cake and it's so incredibly stinky. What do I do now? I don't know where to pour it." I told them the only thing to do is pour it down the toilet. Filter the liquid part, pour it in the toilet, and flush. And for the solid residue, just bury it in the ground. For any empty pots where you haven't planted yet, you should add kitchen waste. Since my planting pots are out of space for composting, I use these. Every day I compost. First, I put down a layer of soil, then a layer of kitchen waste, then a layer of trichoderma, then another layer of soil, another layer of kitchen waste, more trichoderma, and then soil. I just keep doing that. Once the bin is full, I cover it with a plastic bag. The kitchen waste will release its own moisture, so there's no need to add more water. Just keep it covered for about a month or a month and a half, and it will all decompose. Then you can use it as fertilizer or plant directly into it. For the composting bin, you must drill drainage holes. You can also line it with a bag like this so the soil doesn't fall out and keep your yard from getting dirty. Then just add soil. The first layer is always soil. I don't have any empty pots left, but for any pot not in use, I just put kitchen waste in to compost. For pots that have been used too many times and the soil has become hard and depleted, I compost like this to make the soil rich in nutrients again. I am utilizing kitchen waste to nourish my soil. If we keep planting in the same soil without nourishing it, the soil will eventually become hard and barren. The green packet I've been sprinkling into this pot is trichoderma. Since my Go ran out, I'm using this. Today, I'm using 2 or 3 different types, sometimes sometimes trichoderma, just because I have a little bit of each left, and I want to use them up, not because I'm advertising anything. At my house, the place where I keep fertilizers and supplies looks like an agricultural supply store. I buy everything and fill the place up, so now I'm taking them out to compost to clear some space. I bring everything home until the house is full. As for these tough stalks that the scissors couldn't cut earlier, I'll leave them here. Maybe one day I'll buy a shredder. I have so much waste and so many things in the garden that cutting by hand is exhausting, like with the corn stalks. I'll probably buy a machine to grind the compost so it decomposes faster. As for these eggshells, I apply them directly without needing to ferment them. I dry them and then crush them into small pieces. The smaller the better, or you can even grind them into a powder. Then I mix them into the soil or spread them on the surface to keep the soil moist. Besides making the soil airy, eggshells are very rich in calcium, which is essential for plants. Make sure to utilize your eggshells. Also, banana peels are rich in potassium, so you should use those for composting as well. If this guide on turning kitchen scraps into garden gold has changed the way you look at your waste, please subscribe and like the channel. We are unearthing the natural secrets that have been forgotten to help you grow a better future. Your next gardening treasure will be revealed soon.